Hey? Well, no time for a long intro today. We have got so much to do, I can barely fit into a video. We are just going to go. So, jumping straight on in, we are going to be digging, once again, another hole. However, this time we are going so much bigger than we did last episode. I'm not going to show you the whole process, because A, it takes a while, and B, you can just follow the same process we did in the last episode. Once we've dug it out and made it nice and round, we're going to start placing down the paths. Now, we've got quite a bit of technical paths going on in here. We're using a spiral staircase, as you can see here, going up from the bottom of the habitat to about halfway, and that's where the path from our previous episode's habitat, the bat caves, comes out of the wall. Between those, we're then going to join them up and make a platform in the middle, and then off that, we're going to have an offshoot going towards the edge of our dig out. And this is where we're going to place in some guest areas, more specifically a food court for the guests to sit and have a snack while visiting the habitat. Now, today's habitat is for the Madagascan Lemurs, all 4 of the ones that we now have in the game. And the idea is, in this sinkhole, we're going to have a rainforest at the bottom, and then just above the tree canopy, the guests can walk along, eat, have a drink, take a seat, and view the lemurs bouncing around from above, but also be able to go down into the habitat and have a walk around in what is essentially a subterranean rainforest. It did throw us a few curveballs, and you'll see those as we go along. However, one of the first ones is actually lighting. Obviously, building underground, as you experienced last episode, does become a little bit of a problem with the way that lighting works in Planet Zoo. However, the way I've got around that, at least whilst building, is, as you can see, we've got these lights placed everywhere, and then down at the bottom I've actually made a full-blown lighting rig that I can raise and lower as I build upwards, and that will just light it up as we go. However, later on I do have to go back and really sort the lighting out, and you'll see how I get around that obstacle. Now, with the pathways all placed, it's time to focus on the main structure of the habitat. And I didn't want to just make it another cave. We did that last episode, didn't want it to be repetitive. So instead, what I've done is I'm going to make a man-made concrete cylinder, as though when they are building this habitat, they've come in and poured concrete up the walls to keep all of the rock and the sand back. But then we're going to clad it in some rock later on so that it blends a bit more in with the surroundings. Now, to do that, we're going to use the good old mud pillar method, and we're actually going to use the mud pillar quite a few times throughout this build. And we're just going to run them all the way around. I've done them a little bit inwards so that I don't have to worry about trying to make the walls perfectly smooth. It doesn't matter if we've got a gap behind them, you won't really be going behind there. And then we're going to take them down, and we're going to cover probably 3/4 of the height of this entire sinkhole in this concrete wall. We're going to go all the way down to the floor and stop just short of the upper level. With that done, we can move on to some more wall structures, and this time in the guest area. We're going to create our double entry toilet zone, so one for men, one for women, and then we're going to start placing down some shop front covers, filling in the area. And again, just behind there, as you can see, I've filled in a couple of staff buildings, some staff huts, some keeper huts, trade centre, and actually later on, although you won't see it on camera, we've also had to put down a veterinary centre there as well. Mainly because we haven't done the bridges, etc. outside. So this is on the opposite side of the zoo to our previous habitats, which means all of the keepers and all the guests can't actually get over here yet. We'll come to the bridges in a future episode, and that will probably help us a little bit, but for now we've got them hidden in the back here if we need them. Now, because it is a more of an upper class zoo, we're not going to use the normal signs. Instead, I've made some out of some custom fonts from the workshop. And then we're just going to use the little logos that light up, put them next to it. And I think this looks a lot more formal, a lot more smart than just the big advertising signs. The other beauty of these is that they light up. So it also helps with a bit of that illumination when we come around to lighting the area later on. Also knocking together a fairly modern fence. This is just the new zookeeper pole mixed with the cast iron fence panel and then the glass to go between them. Going to top them off with a bit of wood, and just because we are quite high up and we don't want anyone climbing over the top, we're going to duplicate that, lift it, and have this sort of double view fence thing going on. It allows people to see through the gaps. Obviously most of it's glass, but it also stops people climbing over or falling over. With that upper area done, we're going to jump down the bottom and we're going to start landscaping it out. Now, down the bottom here, I planned all this out on paper. I wanted there to be sort of 2 core loops going around the base of this. And we are going to put an exit going out to the rest of the zoo down the bottom here. So you can enter this sinkhole from the bottom and go up and then out through the back caves. Or you can come in through the back caves and go out through this exit. We're also going to create a couple of areas for some water, as well as a little stream, which you'll see later on. With the main path laid out, you can see it sort of in the background there temporarily so that I can see where it's going. We can jump up to getting our spiral staircase set up. So we're going to again use the mud pillar to create a cylinder, but this time much smaller. I'm going to run this all the way up the spiral staircase, and that's going to form two things. Firstly, it's going to cover over our guest gate that will allow people to enter the habitat, but it's also going to give us the opportunity to not have to try and put decorations all the way up this spiral staircase, which would have driven me up the wall, and I kind of decided I didn't want to spend that much time doing that. So we're going to pop some windows in just to tidy it up, but it will stay as that otherwise. Outside of that main column support going up the middle, we're also going to place down some of these little concrete columns. These are just to hold up the pathways so they're not just floating in midair. I didn't want to go too decorative on these, they're not really meant to be the main focus, but also a lot of this zoo is all about very clean, plain concrete and plain limestone, rather than going too in the details on them. Plus it's going to be mostly hidden by trees later on, as you will see. Now, once we've got the main structure involved, we can start doing some more of the pretty decorative bits. We're going to start off with a bit of rock work. Down the bottom here, I don't want to cover up too much. We're not going to go for a big mountainous area, but I did want to bring in some rocks down and around the water sources. The lemurs will be able to climb all over these as well, and we're going to just sort of stagger them. So as they build up and around the wall here, we can sort of bring them up to different heights and have them undulating along, which gives a nice look against that cleaner concrete. In the areas where we have water, I'm also going to use the mossy rocks just to create a little bit of a ground texture. So we're going to use this to line out our little pool here, as well as running them along the sides of our stream. And that's just because a lot of water and moisture is going to collect down here away from that desert sun. And the idea is that this is meant to be more of a rainforest feel. With the rocks in, we can start going around and placing down some of the ground textures using our normal process of just layering up those different textures. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, you have probably noticed that I have not yet pleaded for your likes, your subscribes, or your comments. And that is because I've got into the mindset now of wanting to give you some value before I try to market you out for the YouTube algorithm. However, liking, subscribing, and commenting on the video really does make a big difference to both the video, the channel, and myself. These videos, while a joy to make, also do take quite a while, and just seeing everyone's comments about how they're enjoying the builds and enjoying the series is more than enough fuel to keep me going. Now, if you're sat there thinking, I like this and I'd like to see more, let me know in the comments, give me a like on the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. It really helps. Thank you. Now, once we've removed all our temporary paths and have put all the texture down on top of them, it's time to jump on into planting. And actually, it was at this point I'd never really looked before, but we don't have that many rainforest African plants. And obviously with the main drive of Planet Zoo now, to make the animals really care about where their planting comes from, it doesn't leave a whole lot of options when you're coming to do an area like Madagascar. A lot of them are trees, and you can see the tamarind tree here, which really helps. We're going to plant a lot of those, but mainly lower level plants. We're really limited to the bracken, the banana plant, and a small group of water plants. You can see if you zoom in that I have had to spread out a little bit to the South and Central American section just to get enough plants to really bulk up the overall feel of the area. Now, this build is in sandbox mode, so I can turn that off and it's not as much of a problem. However, most of my builds, as you've seen on the channel, are done in franchise, and if I was building this in franchise, it would look even more sparse, and I think that's a bit of a shame. However, we'll make do with what we can. A lot of the trees we're putting in are going to cover over most of that area anyway. It's just something to point out. Moving on from the planting then, we're going to move upwards to the guest area height. I'm actually going to start off by creating some giant bird cages. Now, these were off of a picture that I saw of a restaurant that is in, I believe, Singapore, where they have these wonderful giant metal bird cages suspended over a saltwater crocodile habitat, and that's where you eat your dinner. So while we're not quite going over a saltwater crocodile habitat, we are going to have a couple of cages suspended from our canopy so that we can bring in areas for the guests to see the lemurs at face height when they're up on the upper walkways. I'm going to make three. We're going to do one for the guests to sit in, and the other two will be for the lemurs, and we'll be popping in some enrichment, some bedding in there for them as well. Now, for this, we're mostly using the brand new Zookeeper pole and all the other attachments, and these go so well together. I've been a bit of a on and off fan of these. Like, the thickness of them, I still feel I would like a thinner version as well. However, when you get them all together like this, and they just, as you can see on the video, it went together so easy. I didn't have any problems. I wasn't tearing my hair out Off camera, and you'll see in the cinematics, I've also gone back and done some doors, like some archways, just joined them all up with the metal connecting balls. They are brilliant. And I will absolutely be bringing these to the workshop, so keep an eye in the comments below and on the channel community post, and I will pop an update out once they are ready. With the bird cages almost complete, we're then going to finish off the tidying up on the upper level. So we're starting off once again with these hexagonal type faux rocks, and we're going to use that to create our cave wall that comes down to the sinkhole. And then on the very top, we're going to build up the desert rocks to create a bit of a barrier, because otherwise we'd just be getting a lot of sand blown down into and all over the guest areas. I was a little bit more efficient this time. I made one section, copied and rotated it, which I didn't do last time, and that certainly cut down on the time spent. With that done, we're then going to create a climbing pole for our lemurs to be able to get up to that upper area. These are just using the normal climbing logs, and they're meant to look man-made. They're not meant to blend in, but what we are going to take care of is making sure they don't clip through any of the trees, and that they sort of look natural as they come out the canopy. They worked first time. It's the first time I've ever used climbing logs and I've not had to go back and tweak it, so I'm taking that as a win. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to pop a load of enrichment items up in these upper cages. Please keep an eye out in the cinematics. The lemurs absolutely love throwing these out of here, and I had to reset them so many times just to film, and every time I filmed, you'll see it just whiz past the camera. So keep an eye out, because you will see that in the ending cinematic. We're also going to pop some bedding up here. I didn't have much hope of them really using these, but actually it turned out really well. They're in here a lot, so all's well that ends well with it. Now with that done, it was time to tackle the lighting. Off camera, I've placed a load of stadium lighting in to create a bit of a daylight aura down at this low part of the habitat. Unfortunately, the way the Planet Zoo lighting engine works, the light has a limited range to which it can drop. So the bottom of this hole was just that bit too low for light to reach down here. So we've used the stadium lighting and some pinpoint lighting just to get it in the right area. And then we're just going to go around and put down these little conservation lights hidden in the scenery along the path, so that the guests have a bit more ambience to walk around with. Up on the food court, we're going to place down some tables before we get our lighting done, because I want them to line up with the tables. We're also going to make sure we get in some bins. The biggest bane of my existence is trash in this game, so we're going to make sure we've got a lot of bins. And also, I got this wonderful advert pack off of Nexus Mods for all of the different food places within the Planet franchise. So I'm going to pop a couple of these on the wall just as a bit of advertisement, a bit of colour. And also, it's the sort of thing you would see in a commercialised zoo such as this. They all look really, really good. If I remember, which I likely won't, and therefore we'll put it in the comments instead, I'll pop a link below to that mod so that you can grab it for yourself. For the lighting up here, we're going to use the good old conservation light bulb, and the wonderful thing about the zookeeper rope is it is now the same thickness as the rope that runs off this light bulb, which means we can finally make them longer. So we're going to drop them down at different heights with different lampshades on them and just scatter them all over the guest area until I feel like we have enough light. The effect at the end was really good, really happy with it. Just to light up the wonderful Indonesian brick, I'm going to use the angled lights placed into the floor, firing upwards. And you can see, even though it is a 2D texture, as soon as you put these lights on them, they get this wonderful 3D effect on them. It's one of the few bricks in the game that this works for, and it's why everybody should absolutely get the tropical pack, because the Indonesian brick is possibly the best wall piece in the game. As we move into the home stretch, I'm going to place a couple of candles down in our seating outside, and there is one last thing that I did, but I'm going to leave it for the cinematics for you to see, and that is I felt we needed a bit of a canopy above our giant sinkhole here, so I went off and created a bit of a canopy. But let's jump into the cinematics and we'll see how that turned out. Now, I fast forwarded a lot through today's episode, and that's because this build took me multiple days of going away, coming back, going away and coming back. I knew what I wanted to build in my head. It was how we get that into the game. I think I got 80% of the way there, and I am happy with the result. There are obviously things that could be made better. There are obviously things that could take more time, and I will give it a final pass over before I bring the zoo out onto the workshop for you all to try out. That being said, there is so much more to see than what you can see in the cinematics here. I would have to run them for about 10-15 minutes and you guys would click off, so when you get the map, have a look around. This is going to be one of those habitats that I love taking photographs from. I spent about half an hour in Discord showing everyone different angles that we were taking photographs from. So it's definitely one that I will return to, and it's one I encourage you to check out once you get into the zoo. However, for now, it has been an absolute delight to see how it turns out. It's not my normal building style, it's not something I would normally tackle, but it is something I've wanted to do for a while, and I am so glad that I got to do it. That being said, if you enjoyed today's habitats, please let me know in the comments below. Give me a quick like if you've not yet liked the video, and if you're not subscribed, make sure to tippy tap that subscribe button. I will see you next time, where we're going to move back outside and start on our wonderful Congo rainforest. I will see you then. Goodbye.